wonder if we haven't scared our young people to death about home ownership. You know, they realize if I bought in '06, I would be underwater, I would have my student loan, I couldn't get out, I'd be stuck. I'd be stuck in St. Louis, I couldn't sell my house. And maybe that, so much of their adult life so far has been taken up by recession and a housing crash, that perhaps they've decided, you know, maybe I don't want to buy a house. What do you think?
But look at the realities that graduating students are facing. 10 years of student loan repayment. That's something a previous generation really didn't have to deal with the same. They're not going to have that one employer for 30 years. They're not going to have the pension programs that previous generations had. Are they going to want to put their wealth into property and real estate like the previous generations did?
Barbara, are they? I think you hope they are, right?
Well, I find that they do, but what we're seeing is that the average age of the first-time home buyer is in the early 30s now versus mid-20s like it used to be. So the National Association of Realtors says that the average age of the first-time buyer is 33. So what we're seeing is people are waiting, they're getting their careers established, they're getting married, they're starting to raise a family, and then they're deciding to buy a home.
You know, the student debt issue that you raised is very serious. There was a study, I believe it was a Federal Reserve study, that indicated that all through, you know, the past decades, a college graduate, young college graduate, was more likely to own a house than a high school graduate. But that has now reversed. And maybe the student debt burden is a bigger factor than we think it is.
Let me talk big picture historically, and Andy, you can help me with this because Chris brought it up in the piece I did with the St. Anne story, the income disparity, that the idea of this middle class that was built, that the picket fence and the suburban communities were built on, this working class, middle class, to a great extent is gone, or not, certainly not what it used to be. And we know from the recovery that the recovery for the nice houses, the more expensive houses is going well. The recovery for the lower priced houses not going well, may never come back. Do you see that, let's be sociologists for a minute, do you see that as a problem going ahead?
I see it as a problem because I think this is how some of these other national issues are showing up. Look at wage disparities and low starting wages. If we don't give people livable wages, how can we expect them to be homeowners? Of course, the people with lots of resources are always going to be buying nice homes. But what about the people on the other end? They seem to be short-shrifted every step of the way, and I think we're starting to see the effects of that.
And you see also that for the average middle-class person, much of their wealth is in the house. If they rent forever, they perhaps will never develop that net income, that personal wealth that they would need to take with them into retirement.
Barbara, are realtors and developers going to have to be coming up with creative ways not to sell, but to get people into that market?
Yes, I think that a lot of realtors, especially in St. Louis, are very focused on putting our efforts towards educating the consumer. What we don't want in St. Louis and nationally is to continue to have this growth of renters and then the growth of wealth at the upper end and nothing in between. And so I think it's our responsibility as professionals in the industry to let people know that there is financing available, that there are home programs available so that people can still purchase a home. Whether if it's in their early 30s, I think that's fine. I mean, if the age is a little bit higher, I think that's fine. But home ownership does correlate strongly with overall wealth, and so we don't want to develop a society where we have, you know, such extreme haves and have-nots. So we need to be careful.
You know, Andy, I know you've done a lot of work in the impoverished communities of the East Side and some of the struggling communities of the East Side. I'm wondering if they've kind of ahead of us, you know, in St. Louis County or North County on some of these issues because of what they've had to face.
Well, there are places, there certainly are pockets in St. Clair County, especially in the East St. Louis area where predatory lending and foreclosures, I mean, that's old news there. Right. And but there are also, you know, the recovery is uneven as we've already established. You know, a place like Edwardsville doing very well. The real estate market is strong. We're seeing new construction out that way. You know, as we get in closer to East St. Louis, it's not so well.
And you take a place like Granite, which was based on a steel and manufacturing economy. They must be facing some of the same things here.
Yes, they are, and you know, so much of that old home ownership, the American dream, was built on having that factory job, a good union job with wages, and those just don't exist anymore.
And I wonder if the younger people who do have the good jobs and the money, are they more mobile than they used to be, so they don't want to tie themselves down to one city anymore?
Well, I think that's a key. Certainly the educated class of young people realize that a home does perhaps lock you in and you're less mobile. And if I get that great job in Silicon Valley, I want to up and take it before it goes away. So I think that might be part of it.
But then if you marry a St. Louis girl, she's going to make you move back to St. Louis and buy a house, right?
That
I mean,
does
really,
happen,
that
yes.
does happen, right?
Yes.
I mean, it is good. I would think, and I have this idea that maybe things are shifting and all of that, but Barbara, I would guess that you're finding young people who are looking for the same things that young couples and families were looking for, you know, for quite some time.
I would agree with you very much, especially when they decide to have children and then schools become important. And then even if they're going to live in a home for 5 or 6 years and move from one neighborhood to another or move out of state, they're still buying and selling and moving either state to state or neighborhood to neighborhood. So we do still see that. I think we're at a critical time right now where we are recovering, and we need to educate the consumer to let them know that there are programs in place and that they can get into the market.
I mean, this is just such a critical factor, the housing market in a community. If it's bad, population is going down, which makes it worse. In areas that are growing, things are doing well. I mean, these things have to be all tied in together, Andy. As you look at these different communities, we can't just separate out, you know, the housing market. There's cause and effect, and back to cause and back to effect.
Well, I was thinking, when Barbara was speaking, I was thinking about stability, and that there are a lot of people who move out, but they're moving out by choice. But think of the population that moves out because they're forced to, because they've lost a job, not because they have a new opportunity, but they've lost a job, or there's some catastrophic illness, or you know, something's happened to the home and they were uninsured. You know, it's that stability that gets undermined, and that can destroy a neighborhood very quickly.